You're listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, hosted by Heather Dyer and Erin Walker. We're on a mission to inspire home cooks like us to try new recipes and make good food. Hello, listeners. Welcome to today's episode of Three Kitchens Podcast. This is Erin Walker, and I am joined by Heather Dyer. Hello, Heather.
Hello.
We are talking barbecue, and we have, I think we can call him the Alberta barbecue expert. Ryan Sanderson is the host of the Eat More BBQ podcast. He interviews and promotes the culture of Alberta barbecue.
And he talks to people all over the world, not just in Alberta. He's trying to promote barbecue culture in Alberta, but he talks to people all over the world who are really into barbecue. So if you're not very familiar, it really is a culture. It's not just a way of cooking in your backyard. It's quite impressive, really.
Yeah. And so he touches on stuff about Texas barbecue. There's a lot about Kansas City barbecue because that's the
governing body of local competitions. We're starting to learn these things.
Look at this. So we learned all about competition barbecue because not only is he this podcaster that talks about barbecue culture as a whole, he is part of the competition scene.
Mm-hmm. He has a team called Moose Knuckle, I think is their team name, which always just makes me chuckle a little bit. So he tells us how they go about cooking barbecue in a competition setting. And just kind of in general, we talk about cooking in our backyards, and he gives us a really great recipe you're going to hear about in the second half of the episode.
Yeah, he's got some great tips for how to source charcoal if you're using charcoal on your barbecue. He's got some great suggestions for keeping your barbecue clean.
Oh, you can introduce wood chips and a little bit of smoke to your regular gas grill if that's what you're working with, which we're both like really eager to try. That will be fun.
Yes, and he's got a great recipe for an herb paste that you can use everywhere and anywhere, and you really should with meat. Mm-hmm. And he talks about some of the local competition here in Alberta. So if you're interested, this is something you can go and check out. There are some great events that happen this summer, and well, it's always barbecue season in our yards. But if you're just gearing up or you're getting ready to dust that grill off,
dust the snow off it. Yeah, he's got lots of ideas. And I mean, we're definitely going to go check out a competition this summer. You can go as a general public, go and check it out and talk to people who are barbecuing, and it's a family friendly type of atmosphere and kids are running around, and so go check it out. Support our local barbecue competitors.
That's right. So enjoy our conversation with Ryan and check out the Eat More BBQ podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Welcome, Ryan. We're so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm nice to be on the other side of the microphone, I guess. It doesn't happen often, but it's something a little different.
We're going to put you on the hot seat. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Well, speaking of which, you always start your podcast by asking your guest a question.
I do.
Have you ever had it turned back on you, or could this be the first time?
Not that I can recall. I don't think it has been.
So you ask, what does barbecue mean to you? Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us, what does barbecue mean to you?
It means a lot to me, really. Over the last 10, 12 years, it's really become a big part of my life. And but to boil it down, there's a guest I had on just recently, and he's got a barbecue restaurant out in Ontario, and the logo for his restaurant reads "Fire, Friends, and Family," and it's getting a fire going, whatever sort of fire you're talking about, and we can get into that, and gathering around that fire with friends and family to cook and eat some good food.
Yeah. And have you ever had anyone answer in a way that you weren't expecting, or that like kind of surprised you?
Well, not surprised, but it's funny because people take that question differently. I had one fellow, I was out in Prince Edward Island this past fall, and when I said that to him, he took that as meaning the actual cooking vessel, the apparatus. He's a farmer, and he's kind of an old school guy, and he's got a fire pit in his backyard with grates that he uses. So that's what he cooks on. So to him, that's his cooking. So when I said barbecue to him, he was thinking people in the city with gas with their gas grills, and you kind
Right.
of poo-pooed on those things, right? So yeah, so people take it, that way. They talk about the food, but I find the majority of people do something along the lines of what I feel: the fire, the friends, the family, the community gathering around to enjoy a meal together.
That's why it's a culture and not
It
just
is.
a method of cooking dinner, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
You talk about barbecue. The first thing I think of is like a backyard barbecue.
Yep, exactly. Yep, friends and family over, right?
Yeah. So for someone who's maybe not super familiar with barbecue,
hmm
how would you describe what is barbecue in terms of cooking?
That can be a little bit of a contentious issue.
Oh.
The purists will say that barbecue is wood fire or charcoal cooked slowly over indirect heat.
Okay.
So your meat or your food isn't directly over the heat; it's indirect. To me, if you're outside and you're cooking with any sort of fire, however you're doing it, whether it's a fire from your gas grill or a Texas style offset smoker, you're out there, you're doing something right in my book. So what we're especially very used to, the gas grills, that's technically is grilling. You're cooking
Right.
directly over high heat, directly over the fire, whatever that fire source is. That's technically grilling, but to me, it's all good in my book. So
Yeah, and here we typically will call it barbecuing.
mhm,
What I hear, like from an American person, would typically say grilling
yes,
or cooking out, or something. Do they say having a
a
cookout?
cookout, a
Like that?
cookout. Yeah, that's when you're having that. You're cooking up burgers and hot dogs and just having a backyard party, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it's semantics and where you happen to
hmm
live and what you call things.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. And some people get very uptight about those definitions. I'm a little looser with it. If you're
Yeah.
outside cooking some way, then it's all good in my books.
Okay,
Ah,
cool.
I do a lot of indirect cooking on my outdoor grill
Sure.
instead of just over the fire too. So
hmm
I would say
Yeah,
you can kind of get that same effect even on your grill too.
absolutely. Yeah, a gas grill, you've got multiple burners that you can get one going and have
Yeah.
your whatever you're cooking over on the other side. It's absolutely, there's ways to do it. So,
Yeah.
and with gas grills, there's ways to get smoke into the mix as well. So,
Yeah.
What was your introduction to barbecue?
I guess it depends. Growing up, we always, family barbecues, grill cookouts, whatever you want to call it. So I was always into it. And then when I grew up in Winnipeg, so I've been out here in Calgary since '96. Got a gas grill shortly after I moved here, and started cooking that way. And then, gonna say it's about 12 years ago, my wife for our anniversary bought me a book, and I pulled it out here. Peace, Love, and Barbecue, it's called. Mike Mills and Amy Mills. Mike Mills passed away a couple of years ago. A legend in the competition barbecue scene down in States. He was in Southern Illinois. I wrote
Okay.
this book with his daughter Amy, and they've got a restaurant down there in Murfreesboro, Illinois. My wife thought it was a grilling cookbook. Looked cool. Didn't look at it, obviously.
Bought the book by the cover.
Yeah, exactly. I get into this book, and it's this wonderful book all about his travels throughout the U.S. doing competition barbecue, the people he met, the friends he made. There are some recipes in there for sure, but I just, from reading that book, fell in love with the culture of it. The idea of this slow smoked food that you sit around, and because it takes hours and hours to cook, so you got to pass the time some way. So yeah, I fell in love with the culture, the idea of it. So that winter got my first smoker and haven't looked back since.
And then you started a
I
podcast
did.
at some point about
I did.
barbecue.
I did. So about 9 years ago, I started a new job. With that job, I started making trips down to Texas. And at the time, I was, online, social media, seeing all these cool barbecue places. And Texas Monthly magazine, it's a lifestyle, I guess, magazine down in Texas, obviously. They put out every 3 or 4 years their top 50 barbecue joint listings in Texas. So I was following the guy that puts that together. He's their barbecue editor. So when my first trip down there, I said, well, I've got a weekend to myself. I'm going to find some barbecue. So did that and took a trip out to Taylor, Texas to Louis Mueller Barbecue. It's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive from Houston. And that was the light bulb aha moment for me. I've heard many people in the barbecue world talk about the same experience at Louis Mueller, where you walk up to the counter and before you order, they'll give you a little burnt end, a little chunk of brisket, just
Ooh.
as a little sample. And from that moment on, I said, okay, how can I recreate this at home? So I still haven't. And then subsequent trips, I go to more and more of the places. I've been fortunate enough to have eaten at a number of the top 10 Texas barbecue joints. And I was going to these cool places, meeting neat people. And as much for myself, I wanted a way to put it all down somehow so I wouldn't forget about it. I'm getting old. So I started a blog. It was Ryan Eats Barbecue, I think it was. And then I got to thinking, well, how can I, because we have barbecue up here. It's certainly grown since then, but we had some up here, restaurants, etc. And at the time, I wasn't fully aware of the competition scene here, but it was certainly active. I started thinking, how can I try to promote what we have here and grow it here, kind of what we have there? Because we've got just as good, if not better, proteins, the meats, the beef, pork, chicken here as anywhere. I'll put our agriculture up against anyone in the world.
Yeah, we're a huge ranching community. So.
We just don't have that history, that hundreds of years of that barbecue culture up here.
Right.
What can I do to start growing that? So I started a website and did a few things, and that just kind of morphed into the podcast about 5 years ago.
Yeah, you talk to people all over the world, right?
I have, yeah.
Cooking barbecue and competing in barbecues and operating restaurants, and it's really something.
Yeah, it's initially my focus was local, Alberta, Canada, but obviously if you're trying to do a weekly podcast, as you know, it's can be tough to find guests sometimes.
You got to branch out.
Exactly. So I had to branch out, and Skype initially, and now Zoom have been a godsend for that.
Yeah, and you've even gone and paired up with some of the barbecue schools and with Weber, the grill company.
I've had some folks from Weber on. I've got I'm doing a recording tomorrow night with a Canadian chef who's involved with a new grill that's just coming out to market soon. He's been posting pictures of the prototypes. It's supposed to have the ability to do slow smoking and hot and fast grilling at the same time, which is kind of interesting.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool. Okay, that made me think, because you're talking about having different appliances, I guess. How many have you got in your backyard?
Well, what have we got? We have 4.
Okay.
Which isn't bad when knowing some of my friends. My wife would say otherwise, but I've got my Weber gas grill, which is my everyday go-to. Don't have time to fire up the charcoal grill. That's the go-to, right? And then I've got my Weber kettle, which is my charcoal everyday kind of charcoal grill, which I love that thing. And then I've got a Texas-style offset smoker in Oklahoma Joe's Highland.
Okay,
so that's where your cooking chamber. You've got 2 pieces. You've got your cooking area, and then you've got your firebox.
Right.
And they're connected, and there's a vent through, but it's offset is the word, is the name.
Right. It's got like a little box almost off to the side.
Off to the side, exactly.
And then you've got the full sort of area that you cook on.
Yeah. So then you're burning charcoal or wood in there, and the heat and the smoke comes through the cooking chamber and exhausts out the other side.
Right.
And that's for slow smoking those big cuts of meat, the brisket and the pork butts. To me, that's the best. And then I've got an Alberta-made drum smoker from our friends at Barrel Boss Q up in Leduc.
Okay.
Which is like a big old 45-gallon drum, and got a firebox in the bottom, or a charcoal basket in the bottom.
Okay.
And you're cooking on the grates above it. So it's more of a direct heat, but there's some distance. So you're getting kind of a mix of the two almost.
Okay, cool. So talking about those smokers, and something that we've learned through cooking over fire and cooking with wood is that the choice of wood that you use can change the flavor of the meat and what you get out of it. And it seems like a bit of a step up to acquire some of that stuff. Like the wood is expensive to buy, but you mentioned charcoal. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So if you go down to Texas, the restaurants and people cooking in their backyards with the big heavy duty offsets, they're burning a fire in their firebox.
Okay.
They've got splits of pieces of wood. In Texas, it's generally oak, hickory, or mesquite, depending where you are. They're burning a fire and then using the coals from that fire. That's you're cooking from that. The hardwoods aren't as readily available for us here. What I'll do is, in my offset, I'll use charcoal, pure lump charcoal. So I don't use briquettes that have a bunch of chemicals in them.
Okay.
I won't name any names, but if you're shopping for charcoal, look for something that says pure hardwood charcoal.
Oh, okay.
You'll sometimes see it's been shaped.
Okay.
They'll just use some oils, cooking oils, food safe oils that are to keep it together. lump charcoal, which is just chunks of what used to be wood has now been burnt down to charcoal.
Huh.
And then I'll supplement that with wood chunks
Okay.
to get that flavor. So the charcoal is my heat source. I'm adding in some wood chunks to get that smoke for the flavor.
I didn't even know there were two types of charcoal.
No, I did
I'm
not.
Yes.
just learning that today.
The blue bag that we're all familiar with growing up,
Yeah.
that's full of chemicals.
Okay, everybody.
Yeah.
You've heard it here.
Yeah. So
Careful what you buy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Step one to
read the
upping
bag.
your grill, your barbecue game is getting
There
a
you
better charcoal. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And I don't have as refined a palate as some, but there are some people that say if you've cooked with that charcoal that's got the chemicals, there's a taste to it. There's certainly a smell to it. So I guess
Yeah,
that
there
makes
is.
sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you're talking about the different woods, and again, I don't notice it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've noticed that cooking with really sappy wood, if we're out camping or what have you, that can leave a bit of a flavor on the outside of your meat for sure.
Yeah. For smoking, you always want to make sure you're using a hardwood. The softwoods, the pine and stuff, actually, it can be poisonous if you're smoking with it. If you're cooking over a fire, so you're using the flame, you're fine. It's the smoke that can actually, there's some stuff in there. So tip number 2, I guess.
Hey, good tips.
Yeah. Oak, hickory, mesquite are the big ones down in Texas. Depending what you're cooking. Again, if I'm cooking a brisket, I'm usually going oak. If I'm cooking pork, I'll usually try to mix in some fruit wood in there, get a little sweetness.
Right.
Cherry or apple.
It's interesting. If you're working on your gas grill in your backyard,
yes,
and you add, the chip.
Yes.
I've heard people say they add that into the barbecue. I don't know how that works.
There are a few different ways to do it. You can buy it's a little metal box. Usually the lid comes off and you can throw your wood chips in there and the lid will be vented. So you put your wood chips in there, you take your cooking grate off, put that right on top of whatever your heat source is in your gas grill. Those wood chips will start smoking.
Right.
So it keeps it contained so it's safe and you're getting some of that smoke. The other option is there's a product called the Amazing Tube, and it uses pellets like for your pellet cookers, your Traegers and Green Mountain grills and stuff. You can fill that up with pellets and just light one end of it and let it kind of just burn slowly. It doesn't give off a whole lot of heat, but you're going to get some smoke from those pellets as well.
Cool. So that could be a good beginner intro into it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've used that tube with the pellets for cold smoking to do cheese.
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
Now, obviously you don't want any heat, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I wondered about that. I've heard of smoking cheese and I wonder how that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've just used my Weber kettle, but I haven't had any fire going. Put the cheese in there and then just had that little tube off to the side. So it smokes, you get the smoke on there, but it's not giving off enough heat that it's going to melt your cheese, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a very simple way to do cold smoking. You can obviously go down a rabbit hole and find much more complex ways of doing it and machines that'll do it for you and everything. But for just pick up that Amazing Tube for $25 or $30 and a bag of pellets and off you go.
Okay, that is cool. I would like to try that. I recently came across a recipe and I started going down the rabbit hole of how can I smoke on my backyard grill and so I'd like to try that.
Mix some nuts and oil and salt and throw it in a pan in there with the cold smoking and you get a little smoke on those. And
Erin, you have to make your own cheese first and then smoke it.
Okay.
I got one of those cheesemaker kits for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Which one?
Yeah.
Which one are you doing?
I got it's the mozzarella, and I think you can do ricotta or cottage cheese with it.
Right, yeah.
So I tried one batch. It didn't go great. So we'll,
have you listened to our episode where we interviewed the maker?
Oh, no, I didn't. Oh.
And so we've tried it too, because for that episode, we each got a kit and we tried them.
Nice.
It turned out quite well. It was really delicious. So I know you can do it. I know you can.
No, the taste wasn't horrible. It didn't have a lot of taste, but I didn't put much salt in. Just it didn't come together. That's the nice thing with those kits, that it comes with enough that you can do multiple batches. You don't buy the kit and one done, right? So that's kind of nice. So
you can really hone your cheese skills.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about barbecue competition.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So we were talking to our friend Avery, who you also know. He and his wife host the Mess Hall podcast. And he was talking about how he was becoming a judge of barbecue
Yes.
competitions. And we were like, they have those here? It's not something that everybody, I think, is aware of. So,
Mhm.
how did you become aware of barbecue competitions here?
Just through getting to know people in the community. I'd heard of Barbecue on the Bow as the main Calgary competition. I'd heard of it. So just kind of getting, so it's probably about 2017, 2018. I kind of just went and checked it out. And then doing the podcast, I'd talked to the organizers ahead of time and they said, yeah, come on down, and went around and talked to a bunch of the competition teams. And that was kind of how I got introduced to competition barbecue.
Right.
And then last year, a fellow I had met through the podcasting and stuff, he put a little note out saying he'd done some competing but wanted to put a team together. So I threw my hat in the
Oh.
ring, and we formed a competition team last year, or 2 years ago, 2021.
So
Oh,
it's a
cool.
team event. Is that typical?
Yeah, you can do it alone.
Right.
It's a lot. A KCBS competition, which is what we have here, that's the Kansas City Barbecue Society. That's
Okay.
the sanctioning body. You're cooking and turning in 4 meats. Yeah, brisket, pork butt, ribs, and chicken.
Oh, wow.
And when it's go time, your turn-ins are a half hour apart.
Oh, that is crazy.
It gets a little a little nutty there for a short period of time. So yeah, to try to do that alone it can be done, but it's really tough. So
Yeah.
Right.
usually see at least 2 people.
No kidding. Oh, interesting.
What do you prep in advance, or is everything done on site?
There are rules
Yeah.
about what you can do in advance. You can have your meat trimmed up. So the getting it ready varies from meat to meat. Chicken is the worst, horrible, most tedious thing in the world to prep for competition. But
Why is that? Why?
Yeah, why?
chicken, you can turn in whatever you want. There's not a rule as to what part of the chicken you're turning in.
Okay.
The majority of teams that win use chicken thighs. Bone in, skin on, chicken thighs. But if you're doing that, you want to have a nice bite through skin.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're cooking slowly with chicken skin, that's tough to get. So what we do is we peel the skin off. We take a sharp knife and scrape the fat off from the inside of the chicken skin.
Okay.
And we'll usually use a jacquard or whatever to pierce some holes in the chicken skin. And then we lovingly put the chicken skin back on that chicken thigh to cook it. So basically we're thinning out the chicken skin, getting rid of the fat so that it can be crisp up a little and give you a nice bite through.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, that is some work.
It is horrible.
That is tedious.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that.
Trying not to rip that chicken skin in the process of scraping the fat off, right? So it's, yeah.
How did
Oh,
you get it
boy.
to reattach and stay on there and not fall
It
off?
stays on. No, it just, when you
Oh.
cook it, it just kind of,
Melts back into place.
yeah.
Well, I never would
So-
have thought of that. That's interesting.
So does that mean you're supplying all your own meat
Yes.
to the competitions? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, there are the odd competition. They call them a guinea pig, where your registration includes the meat.
Okay.
But for the most part, the teams are bringing their own meat.
Okay.
So this could also be kind of an expensive hobby.
It can. It is
Right?
can be. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some wonderful sponsors that help us out with costs. It sure helps.
So what were the key pieces that went into your team? What were sort of the things that you're looking for to put together?
Yeah, there was 3 of us. There was a 4th guy that didn't gel. We got along really well. For 3 guys that didn't know each other at all
Right.
beforehand, we kind of meshed.
Nice.
We just kind of came together really nicely as a team. We all brought our different backgrounds and areas of skill to the mix, and yeah, it worked out well.
And how do you determine your recipe for a competition?
That's a great question.
Trial and error?
Yeah, there's some tried and true things. That's the trick, is figuring out what the judges are going to want.
Mm-hmm.
Really what you're going for is a nice balance of a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweet, a little savory, little umami if you want, just kind of a nice balance of those. Nothing too crazy one way or the other with any of those flavors, right?
And does it vary by by region, or if you were to travel to a competition, I don't know, like let's say you were talking about Texas. If you were to go to Texas, are the judges going to look for something different than they would be looking for in Kansas or in Alberta?
Right.
Or
Yes, that's what I've heard. We haven't really traveled with our team, but from what I've heard people talking about, absolutely. Up here, our competitions are KCBS sanctioned. In Texas alone, there's at least 3 or 4 different sanctioning
Oh, okay.
bodies. The rules are different. The meats are different. Turn-ins are different. Everything's,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So But yes, the flavor profiles absolutely, from what I've heard, do vary from place to place.
And are there teams that travel around like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So barbecue season never has to end.
It really doesn't. No, not a whole lot. So
Well, we don't let the little snow stop us either.
No.
no, exactly. Yeah.
Up here, we're a little hardier.
Yeah, you don't see it as much here with the traveling,
Right.
but in the States, absolutely.
What
So
do you
Wow.
win? What are the prizes of
it's cash.
big cash? Or is it like,
It can be, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And if I had a disagreement or a problem with competition barbecue, it's not always barbecue that you'd want to eat a bunch of,
Uh-huh.
because those judges are taking one bite of your food. So you're trying to get as much into that bite as possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for your turn-in box for our KCBS competition, it's very strict, double blind judging.
Oh.
So you have a green leafy lettuce as a base. The competition provides you with your turn-in boxes for each meat.
Right.
And there's rules about how much sauce can be on your meat. And
Very interesting. I recently watched the American Barbecue Showdown on Netflix, and it was very different.
That's a whole,
A lot more diversity in what they were preparing. And
yeah, that was a fun show to. I enjoyed that. On Netflix as well, Chef's Table Barbecue.
yeah.
That was just
We watch all the chef's table around
okay.
here.
Yeah.
I love it. Right? It makes me want to go and eat at all those places. And
Yes, snows down in Lexington, Texas, with Tootsie.
Yeah.
I've been there. I got my picture with Tootsie. It was that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just a neat place because they're only open the one day a week, and I'm there and I'm in line waiting, and it's like a who's who of Texas barbecue there.
Yeah.
Wayne Mueller, who's the third generation, he's there having for barbecue. Daniel Vaughn, the barbecue editor from Texas Monthly, was there. People I recognized from social media that had their own barbecue joints. They're going to Snows on Saturday morning, right? It's kind of like this meeting place for all the barbecue community in that area. So that was pretty wild.
You can just fangirl it up and
no doubt,
just standing in the line, right?
Absolutely,
selfies with everyone. Yeah.
Oh, what an experience! That's fantastic.
That's what I was talking about earlier about how I started all this. Just having those experiences, and like I said initially, it was just to put it down somewhere for myself so I didn't forget about it all.
Hey everybody, it's Heather. Thank you so much for hitting play on this episode. I hope you're enjoying this conversation with Ryan Sanderson from Eat More BBQ. We try really hard to find a variety of knowledgeable, fun, and interesting people to join us on the show. And we're always on the lookout for future guests. If you or someone you know has a fascinating story or a food specialty to teach us, click the link in the show notes for information. We can't wait to meet our next amazing guest. Well, we should talk about the recipe that you sent to us.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't have a rotisserie for my grill anymore. But Heather, so let's just talk about the recipe. It was a rotisserie prime rib with an herb paste. And Heather attacked this.
I did make it. But Ryan, why don't you tell us why you chose it as one of your favorites?
Yeah.
It's just such a good, flavorful, it's a herb paste and you can mix it up, obviously, but it was me and a friend found it online a bunch of years ago and kind of played around with it and added some things. Garlic, fresh basil, fresh oregano, fresh parsley, rosemary, olive oil, salt, and a bunch of pepper. You blend it up and you just slather your meat with this. And as it cooks, it kind of just makes this beautiful crust on the prime rib, or I guess you could certainly use it on any piece of beef for sure. What I find using the rotisserie is the meat just stays juicy because it's always moving, so that the juices in the meat never settle in that one, settle down to the one end of the meat, right? So when I'm doing this on the grill, either the gas grill or the charcoal with my rotisserie, I'll put a pan under to catch any drippings. There's hardly anything. It just all stays in the meat. And
how would you recommend? Is there a way to do a cook without it? Like how you would do it sort of without, or? Well,
however you'd normally cook a prime rib, you could do it in your oven with this. It's still going to turn out nice, right? Those flavors aren't going to, are still going to be good in the oven, or you could do it indirect on your grill. I would, at the beginning, to start with, get it right on the heat and get a little sear on all the sides, and then move it off to indirect to just finish up. And
do you put your herb rub on before you do that sear, or would you?
Yes. So what I'll do if I've got it on, if I'm using the rotisserie, I'll get the heat cranked up nice and high. I won't put the pan in it first. I'll let it go on the rotisserie for 5-10 minutes just to get it, sear it up a little bit, and then I'll bring the heat down and put the pan underneath to create a little bit of a buffer between the heat and the meat,
Right.
and let it go from there.
Cool.
Yeah,
I made it with a sirloin tip roast that I had in my
sure.
freezer.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a texting back and forth with Erin because I'd never used my rotisserie.
Okay.
And my husband and I were like, pretty sure we've got one.
Somewhere.
So we hunted around and found all the pieces and cleaned it
Yeah.
up. So it was a little bit of a learning for me. I managed to cook a beautiful roast. It was so delicious.
Awesome.
And so I made the rub in advance and put it right on the roast and just wrapped it in plastic and stuck it in the fridge while I was out.
Nice. Oh, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was so delicious. Just like you said, barely any drippings into the pan. It was juicy. It was like, my kids were like, wow, this is amazing. Like they were.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, the whole family loved it. And then the next day at lunchtime, I just sliced a couple cold pieces, dipped it in some hot mustard. That was my lunch. Oh,
Nice. Yeah.
so good. So good.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That's why you always get the roast that's a little bigger than what you need, so you can have those leftovers.
Yeah. And then there was still dinner for last night.
Perfect.
So.
And that with that paste, we've made extra and you can freeze it.
Oh, what a great idea.
Do a double batch while you're at it, and then it freezes well. And
yeah, that's a great idea, because sometimes you have more when you buy the fresh herbs, you have more than you need.
Yeah, use them up, make more than you need, and then freeze as well.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Thanks for sharing that, because quite enjoy it. Listeners, you're gonna love it. You're gonna want to make it.
I love the rotisserie. You can use it for so many different things, and
clearly there's some accessories that
there's no shortage of accessories. Believe me. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to start making a budget. Planning it. That's awesome. Totally. So, do you have any tips for how often we should be cleaning or maintaining that backyard grill that we've got? Because I looked in mine. I mean, we grill all season long, and I looked in it just the other day and thought, oh boy. Should I be cleaning this?
Yes, you should. Obviously, it depends how much you use it. The cabinet, the cooking area, the lid, you're going to get that creosote buildup on there. You want to get that off.
Okay.
With my gas grill, for sure, the biggest thing is underneath, where all the drippings and
the stuff falls.
Stuff. There's a good word for it. I was going to say crud, but. And I've had fires down there with that, where you just have to turn the thing off and let it go out.
Yeah, that's the stage I'm at, sadly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And how often, it depends on how often you use it, right?
So it's not adding anything special or extra by neglecting that.
No, I'm afraid I don't think so. Some of the old school Texas places with their smokers that haven't been cleaned in years, they say that's all the flavors in there, but
right.
I think you're better off to keep it clean and tidy and safe, for sure.
So I am notorious for doing that. Oh, I'm going to take the meat out, and then doing 25 other things in my day, and it hits 3:00 and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't take out the meat. My go-to is thawing in water. Is that
you want to keep the water cool, just to keep it safe, right?
Right, yeah.
But no, absolutely. I do that all the time. Turkeys, fill the sink up with water and let it thaw in there. Absolutely. And it's, as long as you're, depending what it is, if it's a turkey, or changing out the water and keeping it fresh and cool, it's totally safe. As far as I understand. I'm not a food science expert by any stretch, but
you've never poisoned anyone, so.
Not that I'm aware of.
They're
not around to complain about it. No, I mean.
Wasn't me.
Okay, so sometimes we like to do this little rapid fire question at the end.
Fire away.
If you could cook with anyone, dead or alive, real or fictional, who would it be?
It's interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is, and I've had him on the podcast, Wayne Mueller from Louis Mueller Barbecue, to cook brisket and beef ribs with him. I think would be, his family's been doing it since the 40s.
Wow.
I think it would be pretty cool to learn from him.
I think your chances are probably pretty good.
Or Sam Jones down in North Carolina to do whole hog.
Right. Yeah, the whole hog. We haven't even, I forgot about that.
Maybe you'll have to do that on your backyard pit, Erin. A whole pit?
I did one last year. It's possible.
It's doable.
It's doable.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, hey, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite barbecue restaurant?
As far as a favorite, and I've mentioned it a few times, that same Louis Mueller, I've been there 3 times now in Taylor, Texas. From an experience standpoint, Snows with Tootsie, and I
Right.
did the lineup at Franklin Barbecue in Austin.
Nice.
I was in line at 6:30 in the morning to eat at 11.
Wow.
The food is fantastic. I probably wouldn't do it again to line up that long, but to have done it, the experience is pretty cool.
It's like tailgating
It is, yeah.
while you wait for lunch.
They'll start selling beer at a certain point in line, and it's a neat experience.
Okay, let's do one more. How about peanut butter and
Generally jelly for me.
he's a classic.
Yeah.
Classic
Yeah.
answer.
Some days a nice good peanut butter and honey though.
Nice.
And I'm not proud of it, but I will admit this on recording. As a
Okay.
kid, I used to put peanut butter on my hot dogs. It was surprisingly, as I recall, it was surprisingly good. I'm not sure I'd try it again now that I'm a lot older, but
I can see that, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes you find your favorite thing, right?
a little sweet with the salty. Yeah.
I can see it.
That might be the achievable thing I can do today is
There you
at
go.
least I can at least make hot dogs and try out the peanut butter.
grill up some hot dogs. And, yeah, you're good to go.
Aim big.
Awesome.
That
Aim
might
big.
be what happens.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for meeting
Oh,
with
thank
us.
you.
I have learned a lot, and I've got a list that I'm gonna have to go out and I gotta upgrade my charcoal. And I like the idea of doing this smoking with the charcoal. That might push us over the edge because my husband's been talking about that offset smoker.
Mhm.
Can you remind our listeners where they can find and follow you and listen to your podcast?
Eat More Barbecue episodes come out every week on any of your favorite podcatchers. Eatmorebarbecue.ca is the website, which is horribly not updated right now. It's on my little to-do list up here. Instagram is kind of my main social media, eat_more_barbecue.
All right. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's fun chatting with you.
That was fun. And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and on our website at threekitchenspodcast.com. And remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening. It's
So I'll
interesting.
trim a 20-pound brisket all day if I don't have
Right.
to do the chicken thighs.